Hi, welcome to How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. In this podcast, we dive into professional leadership in today's fast-paced business environment. Where our experience and insights will help you lead with heart while securing your career. Join us for engaging conversations and practical advice to elevate your leadership skills and make a real difference. I'm the host, Roberto Torres, a seasoned startup engineer leader, alongside Chris Ollerking, a Fortune 100 IT leader. Today, being a humane leader nowadays, it is a trend or not? Hey, Chris, how are you?
I'm doing good, Roberto. How's your week going?
Ah, it's been great, man. Thank you very much.
Excellent. We're a little closer to the weekend. That's always a good thing.
Awesome, man. Yes, indeed. Well, I brought this topic today because what I have seen mostly in LinkedIn, it is that many people have begun talking about humane leadership and how they want their team to thrive and strive and everything. But I remember well, 10 or 20 years ago, that wasn't the trend. That was a leaders who set up the objectives, and they didn't care uh, if you had problems or if you had something that a humane leader wanted to help. So my question is, have you seen this, as I mentioned?
I'm certainly seeing the same thing on LinkedIn, and I recall back, you're right, in that 10 to 20 years ago, there was a gentleman named Larry Bossidy who wrote some books, and the other guy, gentleman right now, his name escapes me, was the leader of GE, but they capitalized on something called top grading. And if you Google that, you'll find the book by the CEO of GE. And it was all about being ruthless in leadership. You basically promoted and supported the very top 5% or so, and you fired and did not support, did not mentor the bottom 10%. And you literally fired them every year. And for the longest time, people emulated that GE model. And they felt, gosh, look, it's great. Look at how GE is growing. They're merging companies in and they're switching them to this top grading. Of course, then GE collapsed, right? And now they're writing stories about that. And what was that collapse? Well, some experts are saying that that was because of inhumane leadership. In other words, by promoting that top 10%, yeah, you got some really good top performers who drove even more top performance. But because the competition was against each other so much, it destroyed teamwork. Initially, it looked like teamwork was doing better. But because it was such a struggle and fight to stay alive, right, not get voted out of the company, so to speak, the infighting eventually led to perhaps, some unethical behavior, certainly non-humane leadership. And the company basically started to collapse. Some people were fudging some numbers, or maybe not fudging in terms of illegal behavior, but certainly promising the moon and delivering dirt. And they really, GE's nothing what it was compared to 10 or 15 years ago. And I think a lot of companies are recognizing maybe that ruthless pursuit of profits works in the short term. Like you could get a year or two, or maybe even 3 or 4 years of gain, but eventually you destroy the culture of your company because it drives this very inhumane leadership, backstabbing, lack of cooperation, competition amongst each other that's not good competition. I do believe in capitalism. I do believe we need to reward the best, but I don't think you need to jump to punishing the lowest performers immediately. You should be coaching and mentoring and trying to improve their performance rather than destroying them and making everybody in the company nervous every year that they're going to get laid off. So I think the humane leadership, is trending in the right direction, not only through LinkedIn posts or more people listening to the things that we have to say, but the realization that in this complex, very fast moving environment, it's much better to have nimble employees, and nimble employees generally need to be treated more humanely. They're not robots. They're not just single task minded on, I only care about the money. Money's still important, but they want a place where they feel that the company culture is a good fit with their culture. And that's generally, most of those people are very humane, not power hungry, maniacal, terrible leaders. Instead, they want humane employees and humane leaders.
Yeah, and I thank you for that. I remember well back in the 90s, in the end of the 90s, all these GE stuff, and I didn't feel related to that mindset. I remember that it was like an angry grandpa, which was angry all the time. And he pointed at you, and he said, "You must you must do this, and you must do that." And I didn't feel like I wanted to work at GE, which usually when it goes to tech companies or big companies, you say, "Oh, I want to work in this company or in this one." At GE, I didn't want to work, and I understand perfectly that when you push numbers and you don't care about the human, maybe success will be in a short term, but in the medium or long term, it will be a failure. And I remember it is like this analogy. You have a big headache, like a migraine. So you could take an aspirin, but it will ease the pain for a couple of hours, but the migraine will still be in you. So you have to do something different. And I remember and I brought this topic because when I was thinking, what topic should we talk in the podcast? I remember that back in the mid of the 2000s, in that decade, I went to an interview, and the hiring manager she was asking me some questions, and suddenly she said, "Hey, you were in this company, but you only lasted 1 year. What happened?" And I said bluntly, I was bullied by my manager. I didn't like that. Uh, so I decided to move. And she was angry. She told me, "What? No, 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 you don't have to say that. No, that's not true." And I said, "Why are you angry at my position? Because I was the one bullied." And she began talking, and she told me that she didn't have a human leadership in herself. She was only punching numbers, but she told me that it was an excuse rather than a reason. I said, "I don't want to work in this company if you don't feel compelled, or you don't feel that there is something that happened to me. And I didn't stretch out, and I didn't um, make something else. I put on the plain truth. So I didn't work. So right now, when I saw every post or most of the posts in LinkedIn about this, many people are saying, if I feel bullied at a company, why am I here? I should leave. And leaders do the same. So I think that generation changes. When we were at the 90s and probably this 2000, we were a generation that had to stick many, many years at a company. So if you had a bullet scenarios, or you didn't have a human leader, you had to stick, rather than go into another company. Today, it is different. when people don't receive humane leadership, they go to another company. So it's kind of different generations, no?
Oh, absolutely agree. And initially when kind of that job hopping really kind of got going in 2010 and beyond, initially it wasn't looked upon very favorably by hiring managers. But I think nowadays, if you only spend a year or two at a company and you've moved on, as long as you've got good reasons how it was improving your career, people are not going to look at that as a negative, on your resume. Now, again, I personally did my career and stayed there a very long time, because for me, the net positive of, even though I had a few inhumane leaders, for me, net positive of everything I was experiencing with my coworkers and everything else was net positive. So I do think that people need to assess their situation. And I know in a previous episode, we had helped a contact you had in talking about how do you put up with a very inhumane leader. You do have to evaluate when is the right time to move. But I think in general, you're going to find as time goes on, many more humane leaders at companies you interview at than inhumane. Because again, success of the model leads to more people doing the same thing, right? So as more people hear about humane leadership and they try the techniques and they try to find the right balance of humane leadership, but developing performance and improving profits of your company, humane leaders, I believe, will win that challenge and be recognized as the best method for improving the output of your employees. And we need to keep in mind from an employee's perspective, maybe sometimes when you're told your performance isn't doing as well as it should, is that being inhumane? No, it's only inhumane with how the leader tells you. So if you're not quite doing as well as the company needs you to do, and the leader tells you in a very negative way, aggressive way, and doesn't do things to help you improve your performance, that's inhumane leadership and is not helpful. A humane leader can still tell you your performance is not as good as it needs to be, but help you improve, get better. And really, because people do change their jobs more often, you want to reduce that turnover, because an employee that's been there longer, you don't deal with the lack of productivity when they're new and they need to meet all the new people, and you lose productivity time hiring new people. So if that humane leader coaches the employee, they're there longer, they're likely to stay longer, they're likely to be more productive, the company's then likely to be more successful. So I think that's why we're starting to see this shift, is that the younger generation is willing to be more mobile in their jobs. Therefore, leadership needs to approach them differently to try and retain them longer to get the most value. And usually the best way to get that value is by coaching their performance. And the best way to coach is a humane leader, right? And we've talked about that in many episodes. So I think this is the big trend, that they're going to get away from that GE top grading, fire the bottom 10% every year kind of method, and which most companies have completely abandoned, and move towards humane leadership. I think we will start to see some trendy books. I'm not an author, I'm not a writer. You won't get a book from me, but I do think that we will hear more about humane leadership and humane coaching for performance. We still need good performance, we still need to improve it, but we need to do it with humane methods to help those employees be successful.
Yeah, indeed, and you nail it. You nail it when many things that you said, but you nail it when you say that the success is a model to follow. And the thing is, when we begin working, maybe we have a mentor, maybe we didn't, but we bought books. And those books were written in the 50s, 60s, or 70s. Today, if you buy one of those books, it will be, between quotes, it will be, do not be a humane leader, you have to be a ruthless leader. No, today, if you, maybe a book won't be in the latest trends, or won't be it will stick this information to a certain period where the book when the book was written. But today, with all these social networks, even though LinkedIn it is a social network, a work social network,
Yes. Yeah.
so in that we could see videos, we could see like this one podcast in which you could consume, you know, as let me take something. I will give you a little. When I saw all the statistics of this podcast, what I see is that our audience doesn't consume uh, in the latest episode. They go to the first one, to, I don't know, the 10th one, when we spoke about humbleness, resilience, how to become a leader. Because when you find out or you had the need for a solution of a specific problem, you go deep, you begin searching, and then when you hear, excuse me, our podcast, you go specific to that topic. So uh, people will have, excuse me, people are in this humane leadership trends because right now we have all this knowledge within us. You know, there is this information era that we are in, or uh, uh, we're maybe living, and we are maybe getting into this social network era. I don't know, maybe like that, that we could find anything within our reach, and we could grab the knowledge, and we could abide that knowledge into us, and maybe stick with that. So that is the beauty of this versus what happened 10 or 20 years ago, in which they say, this is the book, these are the rules, and these are the ones that you must follow.
Yeah, I mean, back in that kind of publishing and training, it was usually out of date by the time it got published too, right? Because, when the CEO of GE was doing that book, it probably went through 2 years of editing before it actually got published. Podcasts, the media that you can get today, granted, our podcasts are not always polished, right? Sometimes we're a little off topic, or somebody go off on diagonals, or maybe we talk in circles occasionally for people that why didn't they get to the point? Well, yeah, but our topic's very timely. When we record this, you publish it within a day or two. It's very timely. If we tried to do a book together about being humane leaders, it would take us a year to get all the content together. It would go through 6 months of editing and changing the grammar, and we need to cover a new topic that just came up, and have 15 chapters, and before you know it, humane leadership may have morphed into something even more unique that we didn't think of or haven't experienced yet. So I like these kinds of topics where experienced people can share their experiences, and the audience can decide whether it's wisdom or BS. They can listen to it and say, that sounds reasonable, I may try that. And it's fresh information, versus the stuff from the GE CEO was stale before he even put a pen to paper, because he was writing about his experiences over the past 20 some years. Okay, that's all good, but it took you years to get the information out. It's already out of date. The stuff we're talking about is the stuff we're experiencing, the stuff we're seeing, it's stuff we're reading. It's very timely information. And your point of being able to research a specific topic, you don't have to buy our whole podcast, right, and listen to the whole series. If you're having a problem with a bully manager, go to the episodes on that. If you're trying to understand how to mentor an employee who thinks he's number one, but he's really number 70, we've got an episode about that, right? And then people sometimes suggest, things for us to cover too, that we didn't think of immediately. It's not in our priority list necessarily, but somebody brings up a topic. And well, we've experienced some of those things, so let's talk about it. I think this humane leadership is popular because it's timely. And we just happened to have started it a year or so ago because we started to feel that this was a better way to do it. Well, so has the general population kind of come to that same conclusion, that performance management and performance coaching is good if you do it in a good, humane way. Performance coaching, if you do it by bullying and beating and berating, is not humane management.
Oh, no, no, it is not. And you mentioned that we spoke um, like a couple of months about a friend of mine. Well, I went to dinner with her, and we were at that dinner, and she told me that she's really happy at the new company, that she managed to, excuse me, she managed to see that she was in a dump, and in a dump well, I don't recall the name, but she was in a place that she wouldn't want to be. When she heard our podcast, she said, I'm productive, I'm really good at this. And she began applying. I help her and put on her resume to many of my contacts in LinkedIn, and she nailed a job. And today she is happy, and it happens the same when we spoke about these trends and everything. When we spoke 2 or 3 episodes ago about the tantrums, it happened to me. I didn't do a tantrum. Someone did a tantrum to me, and I said, "We're going to talk about this." So when it happens to another person that I know of my network, to me, to you, or when I see something on LinkedIn, we're going to talk about this. So I think that before we do a wrap up, I think let me tell you something. I will drop you a question. I think that today, since we have social networks, it is so easy to understand, to know the problems of people that even though we admire, we don't know, but we know they're in big positions or high positions. We understand that people have problems, that they are human, and we don't see them as high in they say, oh my God, they're like gods. No, we see them that they have problems, and because of that, people are getting aware of their emotions, and that they had to be maybe humane to others. I don't say that it is a 100%, because I have seen people who have the GE mindset today, which they're going for the lifespan. So I think today it is a trend that will stick rather than leave. Uh, that's my comment. And my question to you, to have this wrap up, it is, what do you think people will have to do to remain or to stick with a humane leader, regardless of the trend there it is today?
Well, as with any trends, they go through peaks of popularity and decline. So hopefully we're on a long upward trend of humane leadership. But I think for it to remain topical, for it to remain the new best way to do things, is still going to rely around capitalism. Are the companies more successful that do humane leadership and mentor their employees and can be more successful? And I do believe this will be a longer term trend, because as the workforce declines, just due to how the aging population, there's going to be more retirees than people working. The competition for employees is going to be more intense. 20, 30 years ago, there were so many employees that the companies could just treat their employees poorly because there was so much competition to get a job. Now the demand for the employees is high. So there's also kind of this incentive for the company's leadership to be more humane, to retain those employees. And I think that trend is probably a multi-decade trend, just from the population metrics. Then, as long as good humane leaders keep their eye on the ball in terms of, yes, you still need to make a profit. You still got to be a capitalist at heart and have a productive, successful company. I think that will give humane leadership, a long runway to stay in the limelight and stay a hot topic.
Nice. Nice. Thank you, bro. Thank you, sir. Okay. So with this, we're going to do the wrap. Okay. Well, thanks for joining us on another episode of How to Be a Humane Leader Without Losing Your Job. We hope our insights help you become a smarter and more strategic leader. Apply today's lessons to see the positive impact on your team and career. Catch all our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor, Amazon Music, Amazon Podcast, and YouTube. Join us next week as we discuss something trendy in the leadership world. Until then, stay humane and stay successful. Bye-bye, Chris.
See you later, Roberto.